Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages. My name is Avi, and welcome back to episode 4 of Infinite Alchemy. Last time, we made a mob farm, built the tree-powered compressor, and got ourselves the first singularities of our playthrough, unlocking Prodigy Tech. This time, we'll be playing around with those tools we got last time, pushing ever further into the aforementioned Prodigy Tech and roots as well. Starting off here, we'll be planting blim seeds and expanding the Witchwater Lava Cobblegen thingy registered trademark of Doom, which is its official name. Expanding the thing is annoying and boring, so let's talk blim. Blim is a custom mystical agriculture crop that enables for some cheaper recipes and some completely new ones. The weak enhancer we made last time has a cheaper recipe using blim essence, and there's a wide variety of things that blim seeds unlock. This is to say, we need it, so it's good to get an early start. Hope you enjoyed gas baseball in the last clip as well. I promise it will happen again at some point. I'm sure of it. So what are we actually going for? Well, you've been sieving for a while now, so if we want to get good margins on that, we should get the full 5x5 treatment possible. So that's why I'm making 16 more flint stiffened meshes and 16 more wooden sieves for this. If you're wondering, what will we do when we need different types of meshes? Well, don't worry, I'm not totally sure what to do about that either. So I guess you can say we're in the same boat. Next on the miscellaneous things agenda for today is making a hopping bonsai pot for Fire Blossom. This auto outputs the products into an inventory below, the product we want being blaze powder and Fire Blossom, which is macerated into blaze powder. We can only use dirt as the soil right now, but we can get better ones pretty soon here. Let's take a look at Prodigy Tech, since that's what we unlocked last time. The main component to any Prodigy Tech machine is going to be a healthy amount of ceramic ingots, which we make in an explosion furnace that we made last time using aluminum and fire clay. It also requires a specific amount of explosive power, but that's mostly irrelevant since we have the gunpowder machine up the block. Anyways, especially with the new Fire Blossom bonsai pot, this is really cheap. And the best part is that ceramic can be melted down in a smeltery, which you're going to see me doing shortly here, and can be recycled into ceramic gravel. It takes only 16 millibuckets for each of it. And this ceramic gravel can be sieved for not only aluminum, which makes an infinite recyclable aluminum loop, and also zinc, which we didn't even have previously. Ceramic gravel is really good and is going to help us through some things, especially in Prodigy Tech. If you're American, imagine that a burger had another burger in it, and that's what ceramic gravel basically is. I'm using the enhancer on these ores because they're a little bit rarer than the ones we had previously, especially zinc here. This is also when I realized for the first time that the smeltery actually has a 2-to-1 ingot to ore chunk ratio, which I'm really stupid for not checking before, but I mean, it will speed things up later, so that's pretty good. Yeah, that kind of changes plans because I'm getting double the aluminum I thought I would be getting. With our newfound zinc, we can make transfer pipes from extra utilities, our first actual automation option. What we'll use it for is for immediately automating the smeltery more by sticking a fluid transfer node on a drain. It's not selective to different types of fluids, it's barely even efficient, but it works, and it's going to alleviate some pain from clicking the faucets again and again to get things like the gravel or the ingots, because it's gonna be more efficient in a smeltery. So, ease of access. By now, I start getting interested in the idea of making andesite magma. It's all pretty obtainable stuff at the moment. I'll get more into it later because we don't actually make it right now. Instead, we expand the farming plot a little bit. We add an extra plot to it next to the sugarcane. Shoutouts to this episode being the first one without a proper building montage, I suppose. Here, I decide to semi-automate lava. This current iteration is hilariously terrible. It just stuffs these crucibles with cobblestone that I can put in the chest. But, I mean, it works for what its job is, and we'll add an auto fluid output later. We just don't quite have the resources for it. I also made another hopping bonsai for paper bark trees to get unlimited paper. And to prepare for andesite magma, I use a skystone sieving recipe to duplicate skystone dust, and I end up doing that maybe around 6 times to get a hearty amount of it. Now with that, we can make the magma. The components for it are actually fairly simple. For each bucket of andesite magma, it takes 4 andesite, 4 magma blocks, and 1 skystone block put into the smeltery. For the andesite and skystone, it's self-explanatory. For the magma blocks, we can use slime balls and blaze powder to make it. So I suppose that slime sapping we made before did end up having a purpose. The problem is that magma blocks need molten obsidian as the fuel in order to be melted in the smeltery. So I had to do a bit of bucket shuffling in order to actually get molten obsidian to be in the tank for the smeltery. This, however, wasn't even enough, because it actually takes 2 buckets of liquid obsidian to melt all of the magma blocks required for 1 bucket of andesite lava. So this was extremely annoying, and I don't really want to talk about it. I made 2 more buckets of it, but that first bucket was awful. We are moving on. We're moving on to making the lava automation that we had previously, just an ounce better. So what we have here is we set up a retrieval node for fluids on a tank. So after moving the barrels, we attach these transfer pipes to the back of these crucibles and attach it to the tank, which will automatically feed the lava that these crucibles make straight into it. I also get the urge to set up sort of an automatic obsidian collector for here too. It's just a fluid node into a stone barrel, so nothing exactly novel. Because the nodes only work at 200 millibuckets per second, this actually isn't even that good, because I can't just sit there and keep farming from it. But it's nice to be able to collect from it every once in a while. We've been dilly-dallying for too much this episode. A little here and a little there, but that is enough. Let's put our foot on the gas and start doing some prodigial technologies. We lay out the floor plan and then make the magmatic arrow heater. Ultimately, the crux of Prodigy Tech is everything is about hotness and heat. Using heat to power things like this rotary grinder that we just made, using little bits of components that we already had around. The magmatic arrow heater generates heat based on being on top of lava, so I make a little indent in the floor to put lava in and keep it all flush. Every Prodigy Tech machine has an exhaust at the top where the heat can leave, but if there's too little heat, a recipe just will not run. There's 2 things we want from Prodigy Tech right now. The first is going to be a purely quality of life thing, and that's going to be the heat sawmill. This turns 1 block into 2 rods, making the ratio 4.5 ingots to 1 rod rather than 6 ingots to 1 rod. So a big jump in quality. This takes a carbon plate, which is why we actually made the pulverized charcoal earlier, if you were watching. We also put in raw chicken to get ground meat out from the rotary grinder, which we can then use to make floral fertilizer. The need for floral fertilizer may seem a little strange, but in some way it's actually the crux to both of our ultimate goals in this episode, so more on that later. Let's just gather the flowers while we can. Our next jump in Prodigy Tech comes from making circuit plates, which are made in a tree-powered compressor using copper plates, paper, and organic green dye. Organic green dye is the only trouble there, as it takes floral green powder from the mystical green flowers that we just had. Funny how that works out. I'm going to skip the boring regrow shear process. You've all done flower duplication in Botania by now, I'd hope. And the rest of it is fairly simple, though I did have to use a spare cactus seed to get the cactus green. With that is the stuff ready for our first circuit plates, once we gather some paper and some copper plates. Fortunately, the processing time on this is short. The circuit plates are important, but honestly aren't even that huge. In Gregtech terms, because we only ever play Gregtech around here, this is like being able to make the circuit board. We still can't make the actual circuit, but we're closer. And one of the things that we need to get even closer is getting the fuel processor. The fuel processor turns fuel, furnace fuels, into fuel pellets, which have various crafting uses but are also more efficient in certain types of heaters, including the solid fuel aero heater, which is a new heating device that takes solid furnace fuels to spit out even more heat than a magmatic aero heater. It's a bit of a crafting tree, but we end up getting it done pretty easily around here. Let's take a break from Prodigy Tech now and focus on something else we can do with floral fertilizer, that being roots. We can make elemental soils now and thus farm all the other roots crops, which is sort of my goal. I want to get all the roots crops and I want to place them in the farm. Problem is that elemental soil takes a seed stalactite, so we have to make that first. Once again, we see Blim Essence coming into play in the stalactite recipe. It's a very useful item because we don't need 81 potatoes for it instead. Stalactite grows on Terran soil, Dugonia on aqueous soil, Infernal bulbs on magmatic soil, and Cloudberry on salic soil. I do have to make a waterfall to hell to get the Terran soil, which creates a squid suicide trap as well, but beyond all of that, we can get the other soils with ease. The actual issue comes from the plants. We may have stalactite and Cloudberry already, but how do we go about getting the other two? Without worrying too hard about that, here's the last bits of elemental soil that we'll need. I only realized in post-production that I can actually use specific types of soils in order for the hopping bonsais, so that was a big miss while I was playing. Turning things over again, here I am swapping out my rapier for a broadsword, because the rapier was not doing that well. And also, here I am kind of changing up the mob farm a little bit. I'm making it so that there's wooden spikes at the bottom now, which I honestly should have done before. This puts all the mobs down to half a heart, so I can punch them or swing at them to death, and it's much quicker and all that. The reason why I did that is actually because Infernal Bulb takes a glowstone. But before Infernal Bulb, let's get Moon Glow, because that's something we actually can get. So originally, when I planned to get Infernal Bulb, I wanted to use the Witch Drops to get the glowstone dust required for it, hence the update to the mob farm. It didn't work, but then I learned that there's a transmutation recipe to turn a block of redstone into a block of glowstone, which is absolutely within my capabilities to do. Of course, it just takes moon glow, hence why we made moon glow here. But also, it's just required to have. The rest of the bits for the transmutation recipe aren't even that complicated, but I have to set things up before I really start doing it. If I'm going to transmutate at all, I might as well get some returns on it, right? Taking a look at the recipes with it, though, there are only the glowstone and lily pad recipes that seem interesting. The rest of them are pretty milquetoast or just straight up not obtainable at the moment. A shame, but somewhat expected. This is all for the Infernal Bulb, by the way, because surprisingly, we still can't get Dugonia, actually. Dugonia takes Electrotine, which it's just not available at this point in time, so we have to hang that up to dry for later. Soon, though. Soon we'll be able to get Dugonia, definitely. But Electrum is just not obtainable. Anyways, let's actually get that to Infernal Bulb, finally. Gotta say, having a free bone farm in your backyard makes farming way easier. So yeah, that's the mob farm is really good. And there is going to be basically our detour to roots done for. We got the stalactite, we got the cloudberry, we got the infernal bulbs. We got basically all of the new plants that we have access to. So that's good. We can do some jumps, and there's other things that we can make with this stuff. But we're not going to worry about that for right now, because we were busy with something in Prodigy Tech, weren't we? That's right. Let's get back to it. What is the purpose of a circuit board after all if nothing is printed onto it? Hence, let's do the trek to the printed simple circuits, starting with the solderer, the machine that can actually make them. We immediately run into a roadblock, and the problem is that the solderer takes gold to get. We need a gold rod for it, and we don't have gold on hand. We don't have an easy way to get gold. I perused JAI for possible ways to get gold. There's a few of them. Sieving netherrack also caught my eye. But what seems the most promising is using golden sand, made from molten andesite and dried clayed gravel in a bucket. So here's me getting 16 buckets of molten andesite right out there. And the dried clayed gravel is gone by using clay blocks, weak enhancer, and fire shards. There's a way to make it that uses drying racks instead, and I could have used it, but it took 6 minutes to work, and I am an impatient little ghoul playing this mod pack right now. You break it down to get the actual crushed clay gravel. And then here's a boring montage of me actually turning the andesite and clay gravel into the golden sand that we were looking for. And here's a boring montage of me spinning around that golden sand in a grindstone. I had a lot of fun doing this, as you can tell. Now kids, make sure to read the fine print on any of your recipes, because if you did, you'd realize you can't make ore chunks with weak enhancer and gold. You need creosoleum. We do not have access to creosoleum, quite soundedly as well. It's okay though, because I also forgot that the smeltery doubled ore chunks while doing this, so I thought I only had 12 gold ingots when I had 24, so really just a lousy day for everybody involved. Great work here, great work. Ignoring that, next cool thing, or hot thing actually, we're making the heat accumulator. It accumulates heat into capacitors. What are capacitors used for? Well, just wait a second, okay? We're getting to that. The heat accumulator actually takes quite a while to charge a capacitor, and the capacitor needs to be charged at 125 degrees Celsius. So using a magmatic arrow heater won't work, since it can only go up to 80 degrees Celsius. So we need to, finally, use the solid fuel arrow heater to generate enough heat for it, as that can heat up to, I believe, 140 degrees Celsius. So that will finally be able to charge our capacitors. We were also making the gold rod and some pulverized gold here while we were at it. Of course, the gold rod being for the solderer that we were mentioning earlier, because yes, we're still working towards that. In fact, not just working towards it, we have it. Taking 2 ceramic gears, a circuit board, a gold rod, and another carbon plate, we have a device to print circuit boards. The way it works is that it needs to be loaded with tiny gold dust and have some sort of printing material, the only one we have access to being zinc ingots. But we also need a printing pattern, which I completely forgot about and causes another diversion because that takes a magnetic reassembler. So, magnetic reassembler? Pourquoi? Well, it takes a fully charged heat capacitor, which I was totally already accidentally charging, and a blower furnace, which is almost insultingly cheap to make. And then with some other bits and bobs, we can make the machine itself. We're going to have to use this to make sugar cubes, which we can then use to make the Inferno dust, and then we can put those Inferno dusts into the machine to get Inferno crystals, which we can then use for the printing pattern. Fortunately, the printing pattern is, of course, a pattern and thus not consumed on use. The magnetic reassembler is a lot like both the solderer and the heat accumulator, and it takes at least 125 degrees Celsius for it to actually work. So we can't run it on these magmatic ones, we have to use the solid fuel ones. There's a way to automate these things using a popping bonsai pot. I just didn't really care to do it at this point because it was too early to do it and I wanted to get this finished. On finishing it, here we have our sugar cubes, and also I am loading up the solderer with the gold required, and also the zinc and circuit board. Now we are literally just waiting for the patterns so that we can actually make our first circuits. So combining together enriched fuel, fuel pellets, blaze powder, sugar cubes, and ash will get us Inferno fuel. Then this Inferno fuel can be put through a magnetic reassembler to get an Inferno crystal. And while I'm heating up the rest of these things just to make sure they're at the right temperature, getting the Inferno crystal and combining it with a circuit board and an aluminum ingot will get you a crude circuit pattern, which is exactly what we're looking for. As we wait for this to heat up, then we will get our first bits, our first ever crude circuits. Honestly, they're not even used that much, so it's not like the biggest goal ever, but it's still really important. And honestly, this is actually about where I got into in my first playthrough of Infinite Alchemy. I made infinite circuits. I got maybe a little bit farther. I don't remember entirely, but yeah, I'm back to about that point with the crude circuits, the first bits into Prodigy Tech. And I'm pretty happy with the fact that now I'm almost fully caught up to my previous Infinite Alchemy playthrough. And I'm excited to see what else this pack has. I am a big fan of this pack. I love it. And I haven't really shown it, but there are so many super creative recipe trees, super creative just ideas that I want to see in more packs, just crammed into this singular one. This pack is really well made, honestly. But I think that is unfortunately all the time we have for today. Of course, crude circuits are great, but we need to go bigger. There's more stuff in Prodigy Tech, and we are almost at the cusp of immersive engineering. There's going to be a big jump getting creosote in so many more metals. Of course, we can save that all for next time.